Welcome to episode 14A of our series, Creationism versus Evolution. Is evolution provable? In various platforms, we often hear of evidence supporting evolution, sometimes giving the impression that theoretically it's possible to prove the theory of evolution. However, this is a misconception. The so-called proofs are derivatives of axioms. Most of them approximately fit this description. Of all the natural explanations available, the explanation of evolution best explains the findings. What are the other natural explanations? Lamarckism, the theories of Aristotle? But to prove that evolution happened and not divine creation, there's no chance, not even theoretically. Even if we were to witness every event, we couldn't prove whether they were the result of chance or the will of a creator. All the more so from our perspective today, how can we prove what caused the species to form? Apart from the fact that they were created, we have nothing else. We can explain their formation in various ways, including the will of the creator, but in no way can we prove it. Even if we saw a mutation with our own eyes, we wouldn't know if it was random or intended by a creator. Yet, there are different types of evidence, such as similarities between species, intermediate fossils, homology, molecular biology, and the order of findings. All these proofs at best are mere philosophy. It's unlikely that God did so and so. Really, how do we know what is likely or not? The argument that God created fossils not because we know what he does and why, but because such an argument undermines the discussion, as it could also mean he created fossil records in the diggers list and so on. Philosophy should not be mixed with biology, and philosophy is not science, especially not something that can be proven regarding the question of creation or spontaneous formation. At best, these proofs are a logical fallacy and do not support evolution in any way. We will elaborate on this. Not only the explanations for events, but also to the extent that evolution speaks of specific events. There's no way to prove those events. Historical events are usually included in the field of history when there is human testimony to those events. Even if it were possible to prove theoretically that such an event could happen, there's no way to prove it actually did. Indeed, in cases where evolution proposes a specific occurrence and explains a particular finding by saying the event occurred, it somewhat resembles the scientific method, which explains phenomena by laws, when the best explanation according to scientific criteria is considered the scientific explanation. However, the scientific method deals with the present, explaining an existing phenomenon. Evolution deals with the past, explaining a finding. An explanation of a finding does not explain an existing reality like a solar eclipse, refraction of light, redshift, etc., but explains signs left on the finding. It's open to many interpretations. In general, the theory of evolution cannot meet scientific criteria. Why? Science can criticize one explanation over another. When one can be refuted, the non-refutation of the explanation constitutes compatibility with the facts, and therefore the explanation is acceptable scientifically. Evolution cannot be refuted. Since it is an abstract idea, this idea is embodied in hundreds of thousands of specimens, which are the evolutionary tree. But refuting one or many of these specimens does not refute the theory, only the way they arranged the findings according to it. Even a very unusual finding, like a rabbit in the Cambrian layer, would not contradict the theory. Naturally, they would assume it's a fictitious or forged finding. In the second stage, it's possible to say it's about an inversion of layers caused by a certain natural upheaval. And even if we don't assume these hypotheses, so common, it's possible to assume that life evolved in a certain version until the form of a rabbit, which became extinct. But this rabbit is not our ancestor. There's no end to excuses and explanations. No finding can change the axioms of the theory. Just as when fossils contradicted Darwin's theory, they created the theory of punctuated equilibrium that adjusted itself to the findings. So it's always possible to do. Therefore, the philosopher of science, Karl stated his famous conclusion that evolution is not science, since it cannot be proven or refuted. A theory that does not meet reality and does not confront it on any front, except in the area of matching details or composing theoretical theories, cannot be called science, since there's no way in the world to determine its truth. Also famous is the statement of Prof. Aharon Katzir: Darwin's theory is not a proven theory experimentally and cannot be confirmed in the laboratory. To understand the difference between explaining observed facts and explaining findings and interpretations of past events, we can see a simple example from the science of the future: climate prediction in the coming years. Here too, conclusions about the future are drawn from observing processes we have been observing for hundreds of years, not about 1 billion years into the future, but about 10 or 20 years into the future. So many predictions were disproven, so many prophecies of wrath turned out to be incorrect, and vice versa. All the predictions regarding the genetics of populations, natural selection, climate changes, said in recent years by the best scientists, simply did not materialize. Extrapolating current processes regarding the past or future cannot be considered science. It's impossible to prove or refute them by research method, but only by observation. The most common mistake is to present examples of evolution as proofs if we encounter a mutation. Use it as proof that this is how the species were created. If we witness speciation, it's surely proof that this is how all the species in the world were created. All these demonstrations and similar ones do not prove evolution, that it indeed happened. They pretend to prove that evolution is possible, that these processes are theoretically acceptable. The matter seems simple, but here's an example from Wikipedia, the article on theory and science. At first glance, it seems that the accepted theory of the evolution of species by Charles Darwin completely contradicts the perception of the Book of Genesis, according to which man was created from the dust of the earth. Those with a restrictive approach will say that science has still not succeeded in recreating in the laboratory the process of creating life from inanimate matter, just as it has not yet managed to recreate the Big Bang, and therefore this theory is still in the realm of theory and not compelling empirical science. What might complicate this claim is the immense genetic identity between different animals and humans. Evolution in action that was observed in microorganisms that develop resistance to drugs, or the rapid evolution of the AIDS virus, and also rapid evolution in different species in nature. See objections to the theory of evolution. Do mutations in action, or even the rapid evolution of a virus, prove that this is how the world was created, turning evolution into compelling empirical science? The Big Bang is a theory corroborated by data, such as redshift, which has no other explanation. Is there proof of evolution that can refute creation? Certainly not from the fact that we see mutations in bacteria. See also the article by Dr. Tommy Mitchell. Is evolution relevant to medicine, in which he shows that evolution has no impact on the practical medical sciences, and the way bacteria are supposedly presented in evolution is misleading. The survival of bacteria resistant to antibiotics is not development. And here's a section from the words of the scientific editor of Galileo as an editorial note to an article describing creationism, including, among others, an interview with Prof. Joseph Agassi. Agassi says, "And what should be taught today in school? On this question, I actually support the people of IDT, intelligent design. I think we should teach competing theories to Darwin in schools, including their theory and the earlier version of it, creationism. Everything should be taught. Adoring science beyond a certain limit is anti-scientific." The scientific editor of the article saw fit to comment on it as follows. Not only theories, medical procedures are also based today in one way or another on the evolution claim of the world of living and man in general. The evolution of species, evolution, is a completed fact, no less than the fact that the Earth rotates around its axis. On the other hand, the mechanisms driving evolution are scientifically hot potatoes, causing heated and pointed and very fruitful controversies. Except that all these scientific controversies are based on the assumption of evolution. The article can be found online here. The scientific editor is revealed to be utterly unscientific. No medical procedure is based on the way species appeared in ancient times. Evolution may be considered perhaps a completed fact by different scientific editors, but there are no proofs that can make it such or prove there was no creation. The mechanisms of evolution are hot potatoes, and they are based on the assumption of evolution by those who assume it, not because this assumption is proven. On the popular science website Haydn, the site's editor Avi Blazowski explains to us, "The theory of intelligent design points to an external force to nature and thus positions itself against the naturalistic worldview that is the basis of modern science. Science seeks explanations within the world that can be sensed and measured. Proponents of intelligent design are essentially calling for a change in the definition of science. Scientists respond that it's a shame to argue with proven success. Precisely the scientific method, which seeks causes in nature and does not compromise and call miracle, what it still does not understand is what has led humanity to tremendous achievements. In short, we assume there is no intelligent design. Because we have no way to measure it, we have no power, and it doesn't interest us if there's a creator of the world. There's no proof of evolution. In popular literature, intermediate fossils are sometimes referred to as proofs of the theory of evolution. So in the 90s, the media loudly announced that the intermediate fossil proving the theory of evolution once and for all was found. Without going into the definite data regarding this skull fragment that was decided to be an intermediate fossil, it should be clarified that there is no meaning between the occurrence of evolution and it. It's impossible to prove events from findings, even if there were thousands of intermediate fossils. That is, creatures similar to two life forms, average between simple and complex. This does not prove how these species were created. It's possible to assume that if monkeys had become extinct and we discovered their remains one day, it would be possible to waive them as proof, an intermediate fossil between a horse and a human. However, we still need a theory which would assume the random development between species to species, also regarding the species we know, and also those that have become extinct. And this is no proof at all. Talking about half human, half monkey is assuming the request, because anyone who believes in the spirituality of man sees the details defined as half human as meaningless. What's the significance of the shape of the jaw or the volume of the skull, compared to the question of whether these data belong to a human with values, free choice, the ability to speak, the ability to abstract, etc.? Can there be a creature that is half alive and half dead? As long as there's life, the creature is alive, and life and death cannot be divided in one body. So also regarding man and monkey, the most inferior and lowly human one can imagine is a human, whom a while of education can turn into a doctor of table manners or a fervent idealist. And the most intelligent monkey, even if it walks on two and looks like a hairy human only, is nothing but a monkey. The well-known biologist D.D. Davis writes, "The works in paleontology match well with other theories as well, namely divine creation, internal development processes, Lamarckism, etc., and we cannot confirm or refute these claims." That's a wrap on today's discussion about the complexities of evolution and creationism. But the conversation doesn't stop here. Join us in episode 14b as we dive even deeper. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you won't miss out. Thanks for watching and stay curious.